From where am I hearing?
Well, hello everybody, and welcome once again to the Inworld Review. We're coming to you this week at the top of the hour as part of the Metaverse Week in Review. Simply because it's going to be a quite short show here today, but it is going to be a pretty mammoth afternoon or morning or evening or wherever you are, really. We got a lot lined up. Now, those of you who are watching live and have been watching this channel regularly and stuff will know that we've been broadcasting all week from the virtual world of Second Life, where they have been celebrating their 10th birthday. Yeah, that's a whole decade of a virtual world, which arguably was the first real virtual world of the modern idiom, so to speak. I'm going to be joined shortly by a couple of guests. We'll be sort of looking back on the week, so to speak. But first of all, we'll just get the obligatory headlines out of the way. Firstly, the greater metaverse, as it were. I'm getting a lot of tapping noises and all sorts of things happening on my sound stream here. I hope they're not affecting you folks. The Journal of Virtual Worlds Research, academic journal, which publishes a lot of PDF papers, usually once a quarter or something, has a brand new issue out. You can look up Journal of Virtual Worlds Research. And this particular issue is devoted to arts in virtual worlds, something one of our guests will probably be very interested in a while. We'll get to that. What else have we got? Well, the BBC, believe it or not, come the end of the week, managed to publish an interview saying whatever happened to Second Life. It's about 2 paragraphs long, and if you click the link at the bottom, it takes you to an article they'd already posted in, I think it was 2007. They did, however, have a sort of new little news clip. I'm not going to be showing it today. We'll publish it next week. The first half of which featured an Inworld real-life rock band called Red Zone, who do a lot of gigs in real life, but they also do at least monthly gig via Second Life. But then they got back into the thing of all the businesses deserted and whatever, and it's typical of mainstream media. You feel they haven't really got their finger on the pulse. They're talking about something they neither watch nor understand. But it's PR, I suppose. In fact, the last half of the week, I think it was Friday, that ended up being the official birthday day, so to speak. Quite a lot of coverage in things like Wall Street Journal and quite a bit of the mainstream press in America, which was somewhat more positive and featured sort of brief comments from Roderick Linden, or Rod Humboldt, as he's better known. Also, as you'll see a bit later, we didn't actually film it, but we will have the whole long film for you next week. Philip Rosedale, or Philip Linden, the founder of Second Life, also came in World on Friday, and as is his wont, he delivered his birthday wishes over at the Burning Life, or Burn 2 as it's called now officially, Player being the name of their sort of venue. It's sort of desert player thing. Not a phrase we're used to in Britain, but anyway. So we have a little trailer for that coming up later. Basically, a little ad-libbing by Philip and Co. before they went live, and hopefully we'll have the whole session for you next week. It actually focuses a great deal on High Fidelity, which is Philip's new virtual world project, amongst other things. So that is going to be very interesting. But we're going to get the community celebration, as it were, out of the way first. And we've got a lot coming up today. We're only going to be running for about 50 minutes. Then we will actually be going over to Safia Widdershins, who you all know and love, who is actually doing a Meet the Designers session at 1 p.m. And then we'll come back to the studio with our normal clips. And then we'll be going back at the very end of the show at 4 p.m. to Safia again, who is running a final session on the auditorium called Meet the Communities, and it's the Steamlands. So if you're into steampunk and cyberpunk and all that stuff, you're going to love You're going to love her session with Steamlands. We've recorded an awful lot of sessions all week, so we're going to be talking about those in a very close minute or two. Still back on the news, New Scientist magazine. I've actually had two separate articles this week. One I posted this morning was about how virtual reality displays are letting fire crews see into the sort of blazes they're fighting when they're out there firefighting, which is rather intriguing. And they had another one a couple of days ago about being able to walk through virtual environments as an enhancement. The typical stuff you expect from the media that hasn't fully discovered it yet. But these articles were focused largely on the concept of virtuality in the greater sense, I should say. So I'm flicking down my list here of Twitter links and stuff, and of course most of them are actually to our broadcasts. Let me see. Another post at Live Science. I had a good discussion on virtuality as a method of honing brain surgery skills. This is really to do with surgeons and things who are kind of operating and using virtuality to sort of hone their skills and be more precise. A company called Designing Digitally, this is a chap called Andrew Hughes, announced that they've partnered with Rutgers University, which I guess is in the USA, to develop an interactive 3D serious game, which does seem to be more or less open sim based, although we experiment on that a bit later. And another article at a place called Arch Daily covered how virtual public squares are changing the nature of political protest. Now, when they refer to virtual, they are referring to the avenues of communication like Twitter and Facebook, as well as actual virtual spaces. But of course, this is, the idea of a public pavilion or a meeting place for activities where you haven't just got voice or video, you are immersed in the virtual world is, one of the main things things like Second Life have going for it. So interesting, they're sort of queuing into that. And I think this is really the sad news, but it may not really. But the world's first fully immersive erotic virtual reality game is coming soon. Where have I heard that before? I thought we already had Red Light District and stuff like that. And finally, on my list here, I think Kokua, Kokua 3.6 has been released. And this is the viewer that is the successor to Imprudence. Imprudence being probably the most popular viewer for open simulators and stuff, though it doesn't get that much traction for Second Life. And the Kokua viewer is sort of the next generation viewer. It's been in beta for a long while. In fact, I think officially it's still in beta. They're one of these companies that decided, well, it's always going to be in beta. Well, like Second Life, I suppose, until they get it, fully. Everything is in there that they want, and then it will actually go to a full version, so to speak. So with that, I'm going to turn over as ever to my partner Tara Yates, who's sitting here for her headlines of the week and take on things, and then we're going to get into a bit of a greater discussion about the week gone by. So over to you, Tara.
Thank you, thank you, Mel, and greetings from the Pacific Northwest, where it is wet today slightly after some days of sunshine. And I should also note we are now officially in the Northern Hemisphere in summer. So, we hit the longest day of the year here a couple of days ago, and they do start getting shorter, but I did a little quick look, and at least in my location, the sunset time does not actually start getting earlier until around the 1st of July. So take that and do with it as you will. Now you will notice I have I have critter overload today, and there's a reason for this. That as you all know from Mal's comments and those of you who are around Second Life, this is the birthday celebration week, and so first off, of course, we have. To my left, we have this year's SL10B birthday kitty cat. who last week, those of you who watched the show saw when it was just barely born, and now it's full size. And sitting at my feet is one of the limited edition Linden Lab giveaways, a baby bear. And he's very cute, and he's got a pacifier. And hopefully Emmo can catch him on camera at some point. And then we get into the fun part. There are other things going on in Second Life at the moment besides the birthday celebration. And one of those happens to be the Under the Sea Expo, which runs until the 26th. So you've got several days. And they have a truly fun hunt going on. And I will say it's fun from several perspectives. There's some great prizes, and if you happen to be a guy who is not into cross-dressing, you will find that most of the items that are avatar clothing or body related have male versions. So there are a number of mer avatar outfits that can be acquired, so you can become a mermaid or a merman. But in addition to that, we have various things that I'm sporting. Beginning with the pink shoulder pet from the Cetological Museums. That's an orca shoulder pet, and I'm truly impressed with their stuff for aquatic mammals. I want to go check out their store actually, because they have some rather cool stuff of a variety of whales and sea lions and sea otters and seals and orca and everything that move around in random fashion that are very impressive. Anyway, the pink shoulder pet is from them. We have a wonderful hat that I couldn't resist, which is Release the Kraken is the name that goes with that. I have the kitty cats equipped with scuba gear who's swimming around my head. From Oceania, we have the shark pet who's in my arms, who has a little steering wheel, ship's wheel. Yeah, well, it is a steering wheel of sorts, but it's a ship's wheel. It is in his front paws. And my absolute favorite laugh of the day is from Curio Obscura, who has been one of my favorite stores and builders in a very totally quirky sense for a long time. Curio Obscura produced the cake hat and has produced some other, or the cake headdress, has produced a number of other wonderfully quirky items, sort of in a steampunk vein, some of them, but not all of them. And the necklace I'm wearing is from Curio Obscura. And the name of the thing is Exotic Necklace from the Human World. Now, if Emmo can zoom up kind of close on me, any of you who happen to live around large bodies of water, especially salt water, will know immediately what this is. And if you're not, I'll clue you in. It's the plastic ring thingy that holds together a six-pack. Oh. And they litter the beaches in many places, and they also get stuck on all kinds of animals. So having one that's attachable to a human, when I put this on, I just burst out laughing. So it's the necklace, it's the must-have necklace, and it's one of the hunt prizes at Under the Sea. Oh, and I also have a face tattoo on, which is scaly goodies around my eyes, which I thought was kind of cool. So I just put those on just for laughs for the show. Now back to SL10B briefly. Linden Lab has had some, in addition to the bear, has had some other limited edition goodies that you could pick up at the community SL10B site, including the jacket I'm wearing is one of those. And they also had a free house. Well, I rezzed a house with furnishings, and so I thought, well, let's see what this looks like. Maybe I'd try to put it someplace close by so we could zoom in on it for the show. And I decided against that after I'd kind of rezzed everything. But, it's interesting to see what failures occur in such items. And I'm going to stand up and show you. This is kind of a craftsman sort of house, and all the furniture is in a craftsman style, for those of you who know that know anything about architecture and design and stuff. And the good thing is that all of the furniture, you can change the colors of the cushions and the wood. You can't you can't edit otherwise, which is kind of a shame because there's some things you might like to resize. But I discovered an interesting thing with this ottoman, which goes with an easy chair. Well, first off, the easy chair does not use the ottoman for the feet of the avatar, for the avatar animation that goes with the chair, which is, so you've got this ottoman. Well, you figure, well, okay, I guess somebody can sit on it, right? Well, here's what happens when you sit on the ottoman. And this we've just, Mel, what did you call this?
Oh, this the Linden Lab birthday pose, isn't it?
Yes. Anyway, it's I thought that was rather amusing. It's definitely in the oops department. Anyway, I'll go back and sit in the comfortable chair. But be warned, the ottoman doesn't do you much good for anything but visuals. if you acquire the free house. Anyway, back to other news here. Now that I've covered the silly stuff, we've had this ongoing discussion about the changes in the availability of doing Lindex transactions with other money exchanges and all the changes that have taken place there, and all the conjecture and what have you that this has all come out of changes in the Internal Revenue Service's rules and investigations. And there was an item this week from Accounting Today, which had the rather misleading headline, IRS could begin taxing Bitcoin and other virtual currencies. This is misleading because the IRS doesn't tax them. The IRS decides that certain kinds of income are taxable. Very different thing. But nonetheless, the Internal Revenue Service plans to develop more guidance and training materials to inform taxpayers and tax preparers of the tax compliance risks associated with using virtual currencies like Bitcoins and Linden dollars. The report recommended the IRS develop additional guidance to reduce the tax compliance risks of virtual economies and currencies. And this particular report notes two different kinds of currency: closed flow virtual currency systems that don't produce taxable income. In other words, that's money that only works within a virtual environment. You can't take it out. But then you have open currencies such as Linden Labs, Second Life's virtual, Lindens, which do potentially generate tax implications. Those being virtual currencies that can be used to purchase both real and virtual goods, as well as being readily exchanged for actual RLSIM currency. And the point that probably this brought home is that the question mark in my mind is if Linden Lab is going to have to file the form that reports income over, I think it's $600 in a calendar year, which goes to the IRS and goes to the potential taxpayer to report potentially taxable income that businesses are required to send to consultants and anybody they do business with who is an individual and receives payment from them. So that's a question mark that I don't think anybody's raised yet, but this certainly sounds like a step on the part of GAO and IRS in that direction. So stay tuned if you're in the U.S. That's obviously not going to apply out of the U.S., but poses some interesting questions there. Okay. Materials Viewer was released this week, the official Second Life version. For any of you who are thinking about downloading it or have, you may notice there's a very visible bug that turns up at least in some people's viewers. It did in mine. If you've got it set for materials, the material settings in graphics, which causes transparent textures to render black. The old black texture business. In the particular case that I saw, it was transparent textures, and they were those that were around where there were light effects, such as glow, full bright, or light sources available. And there's some possible workarounds that may or may not fix it in your particular circumstance, and I'll refer you to NRAP's blog for those details. But you can disable the feature and everything works fine. But it's kind of too bad they have to disable it. But if you're getting a lot of that, that's one option. So, Mal mentioned that the Kakua viewer released on Friday, and it is actually one of the first viewers to fully adopt materials processing. So that makes it of interest for those of you who are really interested in following the materials options. I've done a little checking for, that word just gets specular. There are specular textures in clothing, and so far I'm not finding much of anything, but I am continuing to look. So if anybody knows of any women's clothes designers who are using specular textures, would you let me know? I search in the marketplace for specular only yields some male shoes and some odds and ends of builder's kits, which isn't very handy. Let's see. Last item in the geeky side is regarding server-side baking. Word has it, and this is pretty official by virtue of a Linden note card to various folks who are active in the geeky end of things, that they're currently release of server-side baking and appearance is imminent. They are looking at targeting a July 9th as the earliest date to enable it on release candidate channels on the grid. Could be later than that, but they have not encountered any major release blocking bugs. So that's the word on that. So if you haven't upgraded to a that is compliant with server-side baking, do it now. If now is the time. Do it before this comes out, because once it does, then you're going to see a lot of gray avatars, so be warned. And last item, Mal, thanks for mentioning the BBC article that fell out of the birthday-related stuff. And NRAPA, again, in her blog, notes that the article the San Francisco Chronicle had about it was much more balanced, and they actually did some work to produce the article, as opposed to BBC, who she took to task for simply rehashing old themes instead of actually doing some real reporting on the current state of the art. And the San Francisco Chronicle article included some interview with Rod Humble. So check that out if you haven't. And I think on that note, I've run out of things on my list. So back to you, Mel.
Well, thank you very much, Tara. We will indeed be featuring clips and various things to do with materials next week. They haven't been uploaded this week. We really don't have time. The clips coming up later are all basically Second Life and Birthday, and we've got a few things on standby if we need them. Anyhow, time is flying already, believe it or not. So I'd like to actually bring in two guests I've got this week, both of whom regular viewers will already know. I'd also like to thank Emma Wee, who's on camera today, by the way. Next to Taro, we have the wonderful Petlove Petshop, who will be dashing off in about 15-20 minutes to get her camera ready for Safia's broadcast. She and Emma have been beautifully been incredibly overworked with me all week doing the broadcast in Inworld. So if anybody knows what's been going on, one of them at least is Petlove. Hi, Petlove.
Hi, Mel. Thanks.
And sitting next to me is somebody who probably possibly knows even more, because I reckon about half of the broadcasts have actually been hosted by her. Basically, it's the Meet the Artist sessions. And if anybody knows about art, it is my next guest, Rowan Derryth. Hi, Rowan.
Hi, Mal. Thanks for having me.
And it occurs to me, because I thought today's show, we'd really just do a little bit of chat and a wrap-up of what we've seen at SL10B. So many of the exhibits, over and beyond your interviews and things like that, are arts, aren't they? They're just spectacular, out of this world, not possible in real life jobs and things like that. So did you ever get a chance to do a sort of full tour of the all those Sims?
I'd love to say the answer is yes, but it's absolutely not. Mostly because my computer is a little bit groaning these days, and so it's
Oh.
really hard for me to get around. I did try and do a few things out there. I definitely went to go see the builds of the artist I was interviewing, and a few other people too. I had to go see Maya Paris's exhibit. Went out to the turtle, which is amazing, and I'm blanking right now who did that, but the turtle is just fantastic. Do you know the name of the person who did the turtle?
I don't offhand. I'm really
You
terrible
mean
with
the
names.
turtle stage? The
Yeah,
whole
the
big
massive
turtle?
turtle sim. Yeah.
Flea Bussy built that. And,
That's right.
right, Flea
That's
and
right.
what's her friend's name? Like, oh man, I can't believe I'm not going to come up with his name right now. But anyway, Flea had a
Anyway,
lot to do with it.
yeah, that was
And her
absolutely
friends.
incredible. That was
Yeah.
incredible. And the history walk was fun. And I stumbled into some water at some point, like I want to do. And Todi Nakamura, that's the other
Right.
person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
That's
just
right.
coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We got that.
Hank.
So yeah, I stumbled in some water and found some cool things. Saw Eubalinos, Ugajin stuff. So I didn't get around quite as much. I'm hoping to get around a bit more, but I mean, I think it does raise a good point. It's always whenever I do these sort of these sessions, when it's meeting the artists at whatever event or when I'm writing about artists, it's always difficult because I tend to stick to people who are really, working artists in Second Life. That's kind of what they do. They're usually working artists in the physical world as well. But really, everything here is art to me. I mean, I was looking at I was looking at Plurk earlier at a pair of shoes, the new add-on shoes for Slink. And the sound is so girly sounding, but the shoes were works of art. They were absolutely amazing. I mean, they're like Manolo Blahniks, but there's a design quality to them, and the skill set that's involved in making a great pair of shoes here, or a sofa, or a house, is the same skill set that it takes to create the virtual sculpture that we see too. It's just a different application of it. So I think it's all art in a way.
One thing that struck me really rather interesting was looking back at the artist talks. You have people like Gracie Kendall and Whiskey Monday, for example, who Gracie's session, but Whiskey Monday found, for example, on the surface, I just thought we were going to be talking about her pictures, which are wonderful pictures, and the work she puts into sort of structuring them and rezzing them to take them. But what was amazing was your conversations really did move into what you might call organic world art with a lot of people, particularly Gracie. So it was very interesting to actually have people at the Second Life birthday where the conversation was really bridging, I'm not sure there is a real divide between virtual world art and real world art, but it's all part of the same thing. But it was very interesting that we were, getting information, about the real world activities and also their memories.
Yeah, I think, that's definitely one of my goals, I think, in what it is that I do here, because I feel that, I mean, as you said, there's not really a divide. Well, there isn't really a divide, except that there is. There's a huge divide in the way the contemporary art world views this work. There's a huge gap for the artists that they have to traverse to get their work shown, taken seriously, let alone shown, I think, in the contemporary art world. And so I feel that as somebody who professionally writes about art, and I don't mean just here, I mean that's my profession for real. And as a curator, I feel like if I'm going to be contributing something, what I want to do is show how this work does bridge that gap. So I often get into these conversations when I do this with artists, and this is the third year I've done this at the SL birthdays, and I always ask this question: what do you think we need to be doing to get contemporary art? What are we doing? What can we do better? And every year I see more and more artists who are finding success in getting this work to come across, but it's still a really big struggle, I think.
Yeah, it's all fascinating. I mean, I also I think it was personal because he's British actually. Ian Upton, for example,
Yeah.
whose work, oddly enough, I wasn't really that familiar with. I
Hmm.
don't know why, but you know the background he had. You know, he was going back to running stuff on DOS command lines and stuff like that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about Ian, and that's why I said at the very end of the interview, and it's hard to say without it sounding insulting that someone's underrated, but I think that he is the possibly the most not rated but unsung artist here in Second Life. Because honestly, I hadn't actually heard of him or his work either before I got involved with him at LEA when he did this exhibit Extract Insert. And by the way, actually, before I forget, I just want to thank you and Pet and Emmo for coming out and filming these sessions because we've not had them filmed in past years, and so they're up now on YouTube, and people can who are watching can go back and watch these sessions, and I'll be blogging them as well on Prim Perfect, so they'll all be linked. So thank you so much for doing that.
we have
Um,
it. Yeah, I'll just say there's a playlist replay on this channel, and they are on YouTube. But there's also I've given it to Safir. There's an embed for the entire SL10B
Fantastic.
playlist from YouTube. You know, as a playlist as opposed to the individual ones. So
Great.
yeah, we're getting it out there.
Great.
It's been great.
Great.
Great. It's been great doing it. I'm sure.
Oh, it was so good because then I mean these people it's documented for them too for their practice, which is really really great. So Ian, with Extract Insert, I hadn't really known his work either. There's some artists whose names we know, right? Gracie did the Thousand Avatars project. She got to know so many people that got a lot of exposure. People who know who Bryn is, people know who AM Radio is, people know the names like Fisha Nightfire. But then there's all these other just absolutely amazing people who I don't know if they're just not as they don't promote themselves as much. I think for Ian, a lot of it is that actually when you meet him, he says he's an artist and technologist. He has a job at a university.
Mm,
Um, so it's more of like a medium. He doesn't spend a lot of time in world, I think, like socializing and going around and creating events. He
mm,
works here. So in some ways, I think that's maybe how he gets missed. But what he's doing creating real exhibitions where people come into the gallery and interact with avatars. I mean,
mm,
he's really making a huge bridge. And Arts Council of England, who financially supported his exhibit, the Herbert Art Gallery, they loved
mm.
it, and they want him to do it more.
Yeah, I remember in the back channel of that conversation, we'd done similar things here. And there's a pub, just as we call them in England, a bar called the Greyhound, and it's there's a replica in Virtual London, Deb's Regent's Virtual London, and there are a couple of things where the pub had a giant screen, like they do in pubs. They normally watch football on television,
Right.
and we had this up, and the sound was coming out from Inworld throughout the pub, and we were all mic'd up so they could hear us in the pub too. So all the Brits congregated in the real world in London,
Right.
and the Greyhound online in Second Life was filled with people from elsewhere in the world. And the strangest thing, of course, was the people wandering in from the street into the real world pub, wondering what they were watching, and then they sort of sussed they weren't quite watching something; they were sort of part of something, and they were, the look of confusion.
Where's the goalies? I don't understand what this is.
Yes.
Where's the ball?
It was great stuff. We haven't done one.
Where are the commercials?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't done one for a while, but that stuff is just so great to do. We did one with China Tracy in not Hyde Park, Kensington Gardens too. She had a China City
R&B City.
Yeah,
At the Serpentine, right?
At the Serpentine,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and I was there, at the Serpentine, and I went online to Second Life from there, and all these people at the exhibit watching me, and I ended up sort of being a teacher for the night, trying to explain what it was and where, and all these people were running out the gallery saying, "Oh, well, we'll download it when we get home. This is fun."
How did people take it? I'm curious. How did people take that when they were inside the exhibit from the Serpentine? Because I didn't get to go to that. I think actually it was slightly before my.
It was actually very interesting. I came away. When you've had a bit. I used to train computer software and things like that, and occasionally you'd have a group of people who were just perfect. They took it all in and got really bouncy and excited, and it was like that. And the actual event that this was part of was about the future of pavilion spaces. There was the notion of pavilions, which in architecture and modern society are not. We still got our parks and things, but we don't have that many public spaces. So the idea was to look at the future of a pavilion space.
Right.
And her part of that exhibit was just to say, well, this is pavilion space online. Mm-hmm. Now, it was a piece of art in itself, but of course, it also had echoes of the potential use of virtual worlds in other areas. The idea that virtual space is a new pavilion space. It's online and it's global, but nevertheless, it's a pavilion where people can meet. And so, within the context of the greater exhibit, so to speak, what she was doing there with RMB City resonated. And so I felt the people asking the questions, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
They were latching on to the idea of it being a pavilion that they could use online. So that was, they seemed to understand that it was a place to go to communicate.
I think that's what's so great about Ian's exhibit with About Extract Insert is because he actually, in some ways it was a good introduction because it was a black box space. It was literally a black box in the gallery and literally in World too. So there wasn't too much for people to get their heads around.
Let me interrupt you a second, Rowan, and bring very quickly Petlove into the conversation.
Yes,
time is absolutely flying, and I think in about 5 minutes we really better kick her out and get her camera over to SL10B.
I knew it was too good to be true.
So for 5 minutes at least, I suddenly realised time is flying and you've hardly spoken. But tell me, following on the same thread, I think here. You've been with me all week, basically, on these things. What were the highlights for you, the sessions we filmed and anything else you saw, as it were?
I would have to say, keeping in tune with what you were talking about, Ian, it was really interesting to meet Ian and to see what he does. And who knew? Just what you were saying, Rowan. He is under the radar, and he should be being celebrated as a fantastic example of the collaboration that can go on in the virtual and the real spaces. Because what he does is important, and it was just a real surprise, and it shouldn't have been. I couldn't get over it. And there were just a lot of great presenters, a lot of great presentations. With Drax, all of your interviews were fascinating, Rowan. You had the best lineup. It was super.
I really was pleased with the lineup, I have to say. I'll pat myself on the back on that because
Absolutely.
It was a really, really great week. Drax was pretty funny.
Drax, we've had him on this program. He came on the other week and said, well, I can just make it in for I'm in Germany, I can just make it in for 20 minutes. And once he started, he didn't stop, and we were on air for about 2.5 hours.
We went on for an hour and a half with him, all told, and I didn't have to really say anything. I kept interjecting questions to sort of, but it was cake for me because he just, went on and it was great.
And he was like on the edge of being delirious from lack of sleep.
Yes.
Extra funny.
We have another clip coming up later where he filmed Behemoth as well as one of his destinations things. But yes, I was slightly odd feeling when it said meet the artist dragster, but it felt like meet the broadcaster or filmer. But
Well, but
it was
well, the
great. It
thing
was
is,
great.
it's funny because the Meet the Artist thing, that's kind of the general title. I think they all go in for consistency. Meet the designers, meet the artists, meet the community. But actually, when you go, I call it Ekphrasis Live. Ekphrasis is the column I write for Primperfect, and Ekphrasis is it's supposed to be an narrative discussion of a work of art, but it's
Mm.
the title of my column in which I talk to people who are artists. And when I was putting this together, that I feel like Drax is an artist. I know he's an interviewer, like
Absolutely.
we're interviewers, but
Yeah.
he's not. His 5 minute Drax files, that was really what did it. I mean,
Yeah.
Fluffy on a Meshian is great too, but those 5 minute clips are beautifully composed. I mean, it's the interview, but they're
No,
wonderful short films.
he's like a
Definitely.
filmmaker. He's like a
Yeah,
filmmaker. He fills 2 hours to get a good 5 minute documentary out of it. And
yeah,
we talked about that the other week. And he's excellent at that stuff. The
yeah,
quick edit and getting it across quickly, and the outreach side of it. Because, as he says, he's working for the outworld audience.
yeah,
He doesn't want to be doing something that's
Right.
just maybe like this show
yeah.
for the converted, so to speak.
That's right.
But yeah, well, I know, Pet, you're gonna have to run pretty soon here.
Sorry,
About
Pet.
what
Oh, no,
remi-
it's okay.
what
Yeah.
reminds me is one that we did. I think was it you on Pet last night, Camera, when one of Saphir's final ones was the Whovians, which
Hmm.
is basically
Mhm.
the Doctor Who type role play in Second Life. And I think we ran for 90 minutes, but it astonished me. There was a reason for it, which I won't go into. We haven't got time. But the first hour of that particular broadcast was talking about the Doctor Who television show, and we only actually got to the Second Life role playing near the end. So
We get a bunch of Doctor Who fans in a room, I'm
yeah,
sure.
it's the same thing. We may have been in a virtual world and we may have been celebrating Second Life's birthday, but it was just so obvious. We've these so much of it related to real life, the organic world, as I call it too.
Hmm.
So, anything you'd like to say before you hop off, Pet? Sorry, you haven't had much airtime, but
Oh, that's okay. Oh, just that I've really enjoyed participating in any possible way at the birthday. That's all. It was really amazing to see all the builds, to see all the community effort that went into this. Amazing to work with the people who are the backbone of a lot of the stuff that gets filmed and broadcast. Like that's a treat for me. I really enjoy it. So that's really all.
okay. Well, we will let you go. We'll get Emma to turn the camera around. But thanks again for joining us this week. And I will be
Thank
seeing
you.
you in the channel shortly from
About
another
10 minutes.
about 10 minutes in another location.
Okay.
I'll be keeping an eye on your feed here in the studio, not
Okie
my other
dokie.
computer. So we'll see you later.
All right.
Right, I know you will probably have to rush before the hour too, Rowan. But I was actually intrigued by something that I think you've actually mentioned twice here, and I'm very aware of this because I don't actually have time to visit as many things in World as I like, so I tend to have this strategy of stumbling upon things or following things like hunts where you end up in unknown places. You're just hunting for something. It's a fun way to explore, and occasionally you just stumble upon something really nice. And I think you're very right. There is such an immense amount of artistic creation going on in World
Hmm.
here. But I know artists. A lot of my best friends are artists, and I'm a frustrated artist. I'm a designer, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But in the organic world too, and it's a very solitary profession for activity for most people. If you are an artist, your focus is in creating your art. And as you say, there are some people in Second Life who happen to be artists and also very sociable, and we get to know them because they're sociable. But there are so many examples of things you stumble across that you think, oh, wow, where's this person been all my Second Life?
Right. Oh, yeah. That happens all the time, too. And the other thing I find frustrating is where to find the new and budding artists too, because I run a small program in Avalon Town, the Avalon Arts Initiative, in which we are supposed to be showcasing new artists. and I have to scout for them, and it's really hard. It's really difficult. I think there's this huge learning curve that happens, and then all of a sudden somebody pops up who's just extraordinary, like Habit Neox, or Whiskey's only been shooting for a year,
Yes.
and she's been around for a long time, but she's only been making these images for a year, and it's almost hard too, because it's like there's this massive curve, and then suddenly boom, there's someone, and you're like, where have they been all this time? And well, they've been learning the ropes, I guess. But yeah, it is hard to kind of, I think, find some people, and there's so much to see, but luckily there's all these great kind of collectives that are happening. I mean, there's of course the LEA, but I don't know, did you notice there's a new art collective that just opened, a new co-op that just opened yesterday. In fact, they had their grand opening called Capelia.
Oh yes, that's on my list here actually.
Yes.
Sapphire's blog did it. Well, I've actually
Yes, I blogged it.
Yes,
That
and there was and believe it or not, there was another blog about it as well as you. So it's getting a bit.
No, there's
of
been
mileage.
a few.
Yeah.
They sent out a nice press release yesterday. So, I think that Capelia opened up, and they've got some really interesting pieces out there. It's like Oberon on Mura, and Gracie's out there, and Freewheeling, and I mean, it's a great. It's a really great group, and basically, it's actually just a co-op sim. They're sharing. It's like a art colony. They're sharing the sim, and they're just going to have periodic stuff, but it's mostly a working space for them. So
and I forget whether it was you or whether it was in one of Sapphire's talks, but we got a clip coming up far later in the show actually about the LEA, which is like the Open Machinima project.
oh yeah, that was when I was chatting with Chikayan.
Yeah, of course it was. Yes, it was yours. I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've just got a clip on the web, which on YouTube, which we'll be showing later. And it's but that's great, because she was talking about resing all these wonderful, having things in her inventory that she just needed to res, and they made perfect sets.
Yeah.
And so she put the set there ready for other people to come in and use. So it's not really a collective thing; it's her baby, but it's being used collectively by a huge amount of people who can just come in and use these sets to make their own films.
Right.
And,
yeah. It's a great project.
But part of the joy of compiling this show is the last half, where we show lots of clips. I just raid clips on YouTube and Vimeo and places all week, select the best. And, we end up with a couple of hours a week, which is just, the music is normally very nice. That attracts me to these things when they're not stories. But you get this lovely music, but then it's accompanied by camera work sort of swirling around these wonderful builds in World, which are just pure works of art, nothing more, nothing less, but they make, combined with the music, they just make a good bit of afternoon viewing, I think.
I think it's great you're doing that.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's, if I could just
Sure.
interject a small note, and that is, the skill sets involved in doing art, and the artistic sensibility and view and creating, that whole creative mindset, I think in some ways runs very counter to the marketing mindset, and the having been in and out of a whole variety of art forms and crafts and stuff over the years, creating stuff is the easy part, is the fun part. But trying to sell the stuff is absolute agony. It's total agony for someone who's of a creative approach. Especially if you're an introvert. It just you really have to put yourself in that space. So it's very, very easy for me to understand why people who are artistic and doing stuff in Second Life can stay relatively invisible, because it's another skill set. How many hours are there in a day?
I think that's absolutely true. And in past years, in the artist talks at the birthday, I've actually had curatorial panels. And in a way, I think Drax kind of filled that role this year. It was a different kind of virtual curation. But that's something that I'm personally really interested in. And actually, maybe someday we can come back and just have a conversation about that, because it's a totally different thing. And virtual curation, I mean, curatorial skills in any regard. I mean, that's our role, is to help support and promote artists. That's ideally what the LEA should be doing. I think they do it to a success. They're successful to a certain degree. There's other wonderful curators out there, people who are really good at it. The only person I can think of who really has, well, that's not true. Off the top of my head, there are other ones. Both, I think, Gracie Kendall and Bruno get how to do that, which is why we know their names. But other people do not have that curatorial experience. And you're absolutely right. It's really, I think it's very difficult. And actually, we have a whole other huge set of things here. I've worked with artists at the LEA when I was involved, who, English is not their first language. They didn't feel comfortable writing about themselves. They didn't feel comfortable blogging. They asked me to do it, which I was happy to do. But not everyone who even speaks English has blogging and writing skills. So it is a thing. It is an issue, I think.
Actually, language is funny. Again, it comes back to machinima we're showing things. If you've just got music and the art, it sometimes speaks a lot louder than something that, is talking heads like us, where you've got to speak English to understand us. And, so there's a lot of foreign machinima and things that is well worthy of showing, despite the fact that, bits of it are in a foreign language.
Yeah. And it's also just even how to, how to get work out there and what to expect of the artists in the curatorial thing. I mean, I've been very vocal in the past about my pet peeve. It's like anything. You come to Second Life and you think, I want to do this. I'm going to explore this. I haven't done this before. I want to try. And that's really great. But there's, of course, a lot of people who are like, I'm going to open an art gallery. Well, okay. Great. It's not just, I mean, you can role play it, or you can really be seriously involved. And I think there's a lot of role players out there.
Good point.
Good point. But that's true, I think, in anything in Second Life too.
I think it's okay. I see, I see people opening art galleries and basically just scan their favorite paintings and put them on walls. And,
that makes me crazy.
It does and it doesn't. I think it's like into somebody's house and they've chosen what they're going to put there. And, we're talking about, like low resolution thumbnails on the web. I mean, most of the time, these are just little pictures that they've scanned, they've put on a prim, and they want to curate the stuff they like. And
I agree with you. I think it's perfectly fine as long as they're not selling it. That's where it makes me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I have a friend who's an artist in real life, and she's not really interested in this sort of stuff. But I actually thought of having a room somewhere where I put the low resolution pictures on her website up, and I sort of said, I could sell these, for people to put in their rooms and give you the money. It won't be much, but it's another avenue. And clearly, they're working in the real world art field, and most of the originals, the pennies don't matter. It's not of interest. But for others, if you can sell 1,000 things at $1, it's the same as selling an original at 1,000.
I think if people are selling their own work, that's perfectly fine. I think I was thinking of people who come in and, like, I think one of the very first places I went ever in Second Life, if we're looking back, was Victoriana, and I found a art gallery full of pre-Raphaelites, which I was super excited about because that's my thing.
That's mine too.
Yeah, that's what I do for real, Mal. and I was so excited, and someone had these note cards that they'd written about all of the pictures and everything, and then they were selling them too for probably somewhere 10 or 20 linden a piece. And being completely new, I was really excited about this. I thought it was great, and I had no concept of the implications. Now I have written blog posts about places like that saying they should be shut down. I know who holds the copyright on those things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of pre-Raphaelites too, but I somehow assume that most of them are out of any direct copyright, though I suppose the states are managing.
Yeah, there's a whole, there was one, we're getting off on a whole tangent here. So, but I there's a blog post I can show. There's a huge gallery that was selling all kinds of stuff, including things that were very much in copyright. In fact, things that were in collections that I directly work with and I know are in copyright.
Yes.
I had a mind to call up
Yeah.
the curator and be like, I didn't, but I had a nice rant about that. So that's more what I'm thinking about, and the things that make me crazy. But it's an interesting. We should talk about that some other time.
Yeah, I think coming back briefly to curation, we really owe a debt to. Orange used to do it, but there's people like JJ, University of Western Australia, and I think the LEA counts here. It's obviously just a small sort of donation thing of Linden Labs, but the fact.
Well, Freewee Ling is the curator at UWA. I think that's where that real. I mean, it's a great project, but Freewee works her butt off curating over there, and now she started this new one too. I think Freewee is one of the great curators in Second Life. Actually, she would be a great person to chat with.
So, Tara, you're about to say something.
Whatever I was about to say, I think I lost it. in the interim,
I get real passionate about Freewee Ling.
Yeah, I think what I was just thinking about was in the whole area of copyright infringement. That's you've got not only art copyright infringement, but there's an awful lot of music copyright infringement that takes place around machinima. That's a very such a sticky and complex subject, and most people really are very unclear about what the law is to begin with.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
But that's a subject for another day.
Get Vaki on here.
It is. I mean, the whole nature of copyright, I think, is going to change in many ways. Ultimately, in the digital age, I mean, you just can't stop. People download, I do it. Download, I see a nice picture on the web or something. I right click and I download, save image.
Oh God, I do it all the time.
Yeah, but you've got to remember. I mean, apart from a few very stupid bloggers who seem to think a 5 gigabyte picture is suitable for a blog on the web, by and large, you're getting a very low resolution copy there. It's it's no more valuable really. Well, you can put it in your virtual home, of course, but it's no more valuable really than the the printed thing in the catalogue. Right. You've got a little bit, or an art book you buy. You can admire the image, but it's not like you've got the original to put on your wall, or even a properly produced art print. With more than 4 colors, kind of thing. It's fairly sort of disposable, and in a way, it's a tribute to the artist. I know things on the web, where artists have literally been discovered because people, copy the image and then they like it so much they post it to somewhere like Facebook, and then all their friends see it, and those friends that like it also repost it, and before you know, this unheard of artist is getting exposure for their work. So, I think, there are aspects of loosening copyright which act in favor of the artist as promotion. Absolutely.
I agree with that. We should have a whole show on that one.
Yeah, I think we will. I think we've got to start doing some special shows just on arts, actually. But yes, we'll drag you back on for
okay.
On the next copyright epic.
Great.
Now, for those of you watching live, as opposed to seeing the recording later, you can probably guess that we're getting to the time where I'm hanging on, waiting to get the feed from Pet, where Safir is going to be presenting over at the Second Life birthday auditorium, where we've been all week. And we're not there yet. She's there. But her interface is all up, and I think she's sound checking various people. So I think from this point on, we're going to sort of ad-lib a little bit. Just
ramble on a bit?
Yeah,
I can ramble.
No, but what I was thinking is we normally round off here. At the end of the show, I go to Tara and say, "Oh, now we're going to have Tara's final thoughts for the week." So, is there anything else, Tara, we need to get in before I?
Well, yeah. Actually, I was just going to comment that while the presentations and the concerts wind down today at the community birthday exhibit, you can still go visit the Sims for the rest of this week. So you have time with a few less people around to go check out the builds. and also to do the long walk. Is that what it's?
Yes.
Yes, to do the birthday hunt. Walk birthday hunt. So
I think the long walk.
So,
yeah, I think the long walk probably finished today. They just posted the day 7 of it, but
the story part of it is over.
Exactly.
But you can still do the walk and pick up the prizes. So
yeah, exactly. I think that's what I will be doing most of the week. Actually, is just going around again, seeing when it gets quieter. I believe it will still be up. Is it still open next Sunday? Because we have a nice little stage there, and because of traffic issues, we were reluctant to actually do this show from the stage we put up there. It's more a piece of decoration. We might just film over there this show next Sunday.
There was just something about dates and closings and what have you. Let me see if I can find it.
I suspect the closing is midnight next Sunday, so we'll make it by the seat of our pants, as they say.
And where is it?
Oh, well,
you get something and you can't find it. Well, I'll keep looking here. Since we're ad-libbing at the moment, so
all the web pages I've got open are the auditorium agenda, the playlist, so to speak, and it all finishes tonight. So of course I haven't got a clue what the dates and schedules are for the rest of it. I should do by now. I've been in enough meetings, but basically we've got 1 week to sort of look around there, and it's well worth a look. Any of you who haven't been in there, and it's going to be worth a look for us because we've been stuck on stages for a week. Now we actually get off the stage and do a little bit of walking or maybe flying in an emergency.
The Sim's close to the public on the 29th of June.
Right.
And
that's midweek, I think. Yeah. Oh well, we'll be back here next week by the sound of it.
That's Saturday.
Yes, the 29th is Saturday. So
Saturday. Yeah. We won't be coming live from our stage at the birthday bill, which is a shame. But basically, you get lots of people hanging around at these events, and it means things tend to work a bit slowly, and including cameras. If you've got too many people around and stuff, we don't manage to bring you such a good picture, so we have to live with that stuff. Okay, well, I can see.
I see that Rowan needs to depart.
Yeah, I was just thinking. Okay,
we can continue to tap dance here until you're ready to switch over.
We will indeed tap dance. So I'd like to thank you for being here, Rowan.
My pleasure.
And
Thanks for having me.
I'll let you go sort of accelerating off to your kitchen, I think it is.
Yes, I know. I have a roast in that smells very good, and I want to get it before it smells burning.
Before it burns. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, thanks a lot for being here, and I hope we'll see you again soon.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care, you guys.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
So, we've got an interesting talk into 50 minutes, which is surprising in some ways. We normally go on for a couple of hours. We like the open-ended aspect of this. Right, so I'm seeing Pet's camera rolling around there. Looks like they're all pretty much set up, so I'm not actually doing... not actually going to cue another clip while we wait or anything. Let me just check the sound here. Yeah, it sounds like it's all fine at their end, so I guess we're going to cue. Did you actually see much of the birthday yourself, Tara?
I've just done some kind of hit and miss because I know it's much easier to go look when you're not having to dodge sims and stages with 40 or 50 avatars on them, causing lag to be horrendous. So yeah, I've still got lots and lots to look at.
Actually, I haven't downloaded that new CogQ viewer yet. I didn't realise, so I'm glad you mentioned it, that is materials compatible too. So.
Yeah, well, that was the item about it that caught my attention, was that it is the materials compliant. So it works with materials, which at this point that does give you an option to the official Second Life viewer. I have no idea. I suspect that the bug that I talked about with partially transparent textures turning black, I don't know if that is a server-side issue that is going to be an issue. You're going to see the same thing happening in the Kokua viewer or not. So, but there's an advanced setting. I can't remember what it's called, but it's pretty obvious because it says advanced da in the graphics settings.
Right. Yeah.
And if you turn that off, that turns off the material stuff.
Right, yeah, same as the Linden viewer by the look of it. It's odd, it's just odd because I keep thinking of Kokua as a successor to Imprudence with a focus on OpenSim. So, when I see all these things, hear these things, meshes and materials and stuff coming into it, I suppose it's for Second Life's benefit because those features won't be available on OpenSim.
Yeah, I don't know if what's happening with materials on other sims, but I am aware that some of the development work on that was done by OpenSim developers. Because when the lab released their official materials viewer, there's some thank yous in the blog post to several people who are very active in the OpenSim development community. So.
Well, Pet tells me in the back channel that we've got about 2 minutes. Safia's just sending out messages and stuff before they go live.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting. Yeah, I wonder about this. One thing I was really pleased to note in the week actually was the item you mentioned about the release of the new Linden viewer. I had to go somewhere yesterday, which meant I had to use the Second Life viewer, and I sort of logged in immediately. I got the auto download, then they said restart, and everything else went in. It looked pretty much the same. Then I got another pop-up message saying there's another update available. Download, restart, and then I realised that I was actually in the materials viewer. I couldn't see anything material, but I could see from preferences that the button I thought should have been there actually was there. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. At the moment, I'm not very keen on Linden Labs viewer. Its interface, you really can't customize it enough for my liking, and all the things are in the wrong places.
Yeah. I think what I found is when I have been in with the official viewer, there's some things that I have set up to suit myself with Firestorm that I'm very, very used to with Firestorm. That when I go into the Linden viewer and they're not in the same place or they don't behave quite the same, then I find myself that mild annoyance that one feels.
Yeah, I didn't even get to say what I was going to say, and that was the thing that actually did please me this week was when they did release it, and Linden Labs put up the blog post about it. They gave a full paragraph of credit to Firestorm, and I forget the other one. It wasn't Exodus, or was it? But basically, two groups of OpenSim. Or third-party viewers, I should say, who contributed to it, and that we haven't seen that from Linden Labs before. They normally, here's the latest Second Life viewer, download it because you'll need this for whatever. But it was nice to see the additional sort of
the credit.
The credit,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. I've just seen Savile Woodisons is offline. That's ominous, isn't it?
Yeah. Oops.
She says
yes, I see it here too.
Too busy firing off IMs. Overloaded the.
And she's back online.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the the joys of broadcasting and high traffic locations with lots of things going on that affect.
Indeed, we had a few very funny incidents. We broadcast a few things that just it's just not work so worth archiving. There was a psychotherapy thing, for example, which potentially should have been interesting, but she just stood there on the stage, sort of gossiping with the audience and getting these two people, the res prims, to represent themselves, and sort of it didn't really work as a presentation, and let alone something worth archiving. But it was a shame, because I'm sure if that had been an exhibit somewhere and people had stopped by and partaken in this experiment, it would have got attraction. But it just didn't work as a sort of auditorium presentation. So
yes. Yeah. Well, of course, the other thing that makes it difficult or challenging in situations like this, where you're streaming something live that's a live event in World, where there's audience interaction and the audience is typing stuff in text. If your presenters aren't very attuned to the difference, to the fact that this is also being broadcast, so that they read the comments that the audience is making in text, because obviously if you're watching it on screen, you don't get that information. So an event that takes place with a significant text chat element is difficult at best to broadcast.
Actually, it's rather funny, and kudos to Emma here, who's on camera, for something totally different that happened. I think it was yesterday. I'm getting confused now. There've been so many, but there was a medieval fair sort of costume sort of thing, and they were testing for voice. And before we went on air, voice was fine. They appeared to be going to run in voice, and as soon as it started, everything went silent. But Emma, who wasn't actually filming at the time, suddenly had the idea of copying and pasting all the Inworld chat into Skype for me. So I actually went for about 40 minutes just relaying this chat as a sort of commentator. So if you watch the clip in playback, you see all these nice medieval costumes and everything else. And I'm actually commentating over it, saying, well, so-and-so has been in this business for so many years and has done this and has a real passion for medieval blah, 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 that kind of thing. And somehow I filled the space. Everybody was quite happy. So, it's archivable, shall I say. It's nothing special, but it was improvised, and it just totally provided us a way to bring the chat over by me reading it out and adding a little bit of commentary and just, making it a commentator kind of thing. It's hard to explain, but it seemed to work.
Well, I have the impression
okay.
also that,
I think Petlove is ready. So, yes, it looks like Petlove is ready. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We're going to go now over to Safia's session now, which is over at SL10B. And we will be back here, same time, same place next week with Inworld Review.